Hello. I used to embroider a lot. My chair's squeaky. Anyhow, yes, I used to embroider a lot, and I don't really anymore, but I'm trying to change that. Why don't I do it anymore? Because it takes a lot of time, and life gets in the way. Life gets in the way. Anyhow, I want to bring y'all, yins, all of you, along on my journey back to fiber art. Back to life, back to embroidery, back to life. And today, I'm gonna just experiment and try to work on an embroidered felt patch of my favorite boy in all of the land, and yours too, Mothman. So let's get to it. What is that? Oh, famous. Famous. Haha. Yes. Okay. Do you ever do that? Like when you sit down, you're just like, okay, all right. I do that all the time. I don't know why, but it just resets my brain, maybe. I like to tell myself it does. It's obviously just a weird idiosyncrasy. Words. Okay, anyhow. Sewing. This is the pattern, or the sort of pattern that I came up with, that I'm going to draw onto a heavier piece of Bristol board to make a pattern. And then I'll put that on the fabric and trace it. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I got this felt from Michael's, called Loops and Threads is the brand. I've never used this brand. The felt that I had used before was a much thicker fabric. This seems a lot thinner. I don't think it's for native felting, but you could probably use it for that. Regardless, I don't normally use an embroidery hoop when I'm sewing felt because it's so thick, but I feel like it might be necessary with this one, so I'm going to cut a square that's big enough to fit in the hoop. I have my rotary cutter that I just sharpened, and it's already dangerous when it's not fully sharpened, so if you're using a rotary cutter, please be careful. These things are demonic. I don't care if this line isn't perfect, because I'm cutting around that anyway. Yeah, I'm definitely glad that I'm putting this in a hoop, because, oh my god, this is the most pathetic cut ever. Just saw it, why don't you? I guess I didn't sharpen it well enough. Anyhow. Yeah, gonna have to resharpen that sucker. Okay, just double checking, because I eyeballed everything to make sure that this pattern fits inside this little hoop. And it does. Pretty sure this is a 4-inch. Yeah. Anyhow, now I'm going to go ahead and trace this onto the felt. You can use a white fabric pencil or pen. I'm probably just going to use a colored pencil because I don't know where my fabric pens went. So I'm going to do that now. Perhaps because I like to make things as difficult as possible for myself, I'm going to try to cut out little tiny baby teeth for his overbite with the white felt. And I'm going to cut out 2 circles for his eyes and then embroider around those. All of his mothy fur I'm going to do in this silver thread because it'll just make them look kind of shiny, and it'll also show up on the black. And then I have like an orangish red that I'll do try to sew the eyes on with to give it a little bit of depth and, you know, just some contrast. And then I'll probably just sew the teeth with, sew the edges of the teeth with like this nice pearl cotton black. That's the plan. Now, the plan and the execution can sometimes be two completely different things. And this is the joys of sewing. Well, my ambition of cutting the white felt to make the tooth, as I suspected, is a bit too ambitious. That is so small, unless I'm using some sort of glue or like fabric backer, which I do have stuff like iron on, but I don't want to be ironing on felt. That's not a good idea. That's just far too small. I will literally drive myself insane. So I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. So I'm going to just make his little smiley with the silver thread more than likely, and then I'll go in with the white pearl cotton thread and just hand sew his little teethers, which is still going to be very intricate, small, and difficult, but not as much as trying to get the felt sewn on there. I mean, sewing these little eyeballs on is probably going to be enough of an issue. Got the silver thread, and I'm going to do this little smiley face here, just that line. And the thing about embroidery floss is it's several, if you're not familiar, several strings attached. So a lot of the time when you're doing really small details like this, it's best to pull apart and just do a single thread, and then you can adjust as needed. Of course, it'll get tangled and it'll be a pain. This is just a part of embroidery. It requires a lot of patience, but get as much as you think you need. And then for felt, I usually like to get a shorter needle, but I don't want it to be too thin. Like, I want it to be nice and durable. So I got a thicker, shorter needle. I am a chaotic little goblin, so I don't use any kind of threader. I'll just do it myself. And then I'll just leave a little bit here. I'm not going to double up because it's just probably going to be too thick for the kind of line that I want to do. That knot in the back isn't going to do crap. It's just going to keep coming through. So I have to be really gentle to make sure this doesn't get caught until I can get some sort of movement here. I have my finger back here just kind of holding it because that knot is not tight enough to secure this down. I'll tie it once I'm done. But I'm going to hold it there so I don't lose my spot. And just a very simple stitch right along this line. And then we'll do it again, but like a little bit further up. I might even want to make that a little bit smaller than that, to tell you the truth. This is part of the experimentation. See, I'm stuck on my scissors. Sewing requires a lot of patience, y'all. Okay, so then I just meet my stitch here, pull in the back. I'm still holding that back so it doesn't pull, the thread doesn't pull through. So what I decided to do was violently pin his eyes in place because I was going to just sort of let him hang, but I don't think that that's a good idea. So just the violent pin through the eyes. I'm sorry, Mothman. I don't know if I love this method. but I'm committed to it now. So here we are. This is how slow embroidery is, guys. So slow. My husband is listening to music very loudly downstairs, so apologies if there's a weird banging in the background. Or you hear my heavy breathing as I sew these tiny felt eyeballs. Curse the gods that I chose this method. Honestly, though, I kind of like the way they look like little flowers or sunbursts, and then the way the felt sort of sticks up. It gives it this 3D sort of vibe, which I don't really hate. So I'm just trusting the process, y'all.
Well, for my house plan, right, should I have a minotaur pit?
A minotaur pit?
Yeah.
Pit for what?
A labyrinth, like.
For what?
For my house plan.
Your house plant?
House plan?
Well, what house plan? What are you talking about?
For math class, should I have all my rooms be like a minotaur labyrinth?
Oh. Sure. As you can see, progress is being made. It's not done yet. I like this accent with the gray for the fur, but I think I'm going to go back in once I'm done with everything and do some black pearl on top of it just to like give it some dimension. I don't want it to just look like he's all white. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's hard to do this sort of like inverse color palette situation on black, so it's kind of always a learning curve for me. Also, whenever I did these teeth, I ended up having to use a regular thread instead of the pearl because this was way too thick, and even the regular thread I had to just keep upping like over and over and over again. But if the thicker thread, it was too thick. It's just like you can't win. It's such small sewing that the details get lost, so you just have to build it up and build it up and build it up. And also with felt, it's hard to explain, but like when you use the needle, it like pulls it apart, so there's little holes, so you have to constantly keep going over it to make sure that it's dense enough that the thread is still like the main thing. It's really hard to explain. But I'm gonna keep plugging away at this, do some of the black, and then we'll be cutting him out and getting ready to like make the brooch part of it. Progress is being made. We are getting closer. The back has now been cut, little guy's cut. So this is essentially how it's gonna look from the front when we're done after he gets sewn on. But the next step is turning this over. We'll get rid of him for now. We have to attach these clips for the brooch on the back. I'm going to do it like this. You want to make sure that these hooks are facing up so you can attach it to a article of clothing properly. So I will make a couple little dots on the fabric where these dots are so I know where to sew it. I'll sew these on by hand, and then once these are on, we'll sew the patch onto the front and we'll be done. Alright, our boy is pinned. He's pinned like a butterfly by a botanist. A botanist? No, an entomologist. I'm really sorry, guys. Anyhow, I was going to. God, I'm an idiot. I was gonna sew this with black thread, but then I got to thinking this lime thread might be pretty rad, especially with this purple. I don't know why my lighting is so crap right now, but in person it looks super bomb. Anyway, I just like I don't want to be afraid of color. I want stuff to be bright and happy and fun. So that's what I'm gonna do. All right, he's all done. I kept thinking I spelled that wrong. I had to stare at it for a second. I don't like that I had these little guys, but I'm not really sure how to secure the corners of the thread just yet in a more pretty way, but I don't know. I still think he's pretty cool. Let's maybe put him on a jacket. See how he looks. Don't mind me just flying through. Bye.